Mr. Bob Dudley, a pleasure seeing you again. So let's start with the Iran sanctions. We've seen the US reinstitute those over the past week. Are you at all concerned that that might leave the market short? And if so, are there particular areas where the shortages could be felt most acutely?
I think what we've seen is a withdrawal from the agreement, which seems to be a beginning of another negotiation of some kind, but implied harshly, I mean, you could lead to 1 million barrels a day off the markets, and then of course will affect things. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and I think that's probably more reflected in that, along with what's happening in Venezuela, that is affecting the oil price now.
Right. Has BP been buying any Iranian oil?
I think a couple of years ago, we bought one cargo of crude, and I think it's probably best for us to take a deep breath and step back and watch and see.
Right, but nothing since then, I guess. All right, let's talk about your earnings recently, because you got knocked a little bit by the market for fiscal discipline. Do you think that was fair?
Well, the market's the market, but we've been really clear in a capital framework with lots of discipline, $15 to $17 billion a year to 2021. You can do a lot more with that capital today because the costs have come down. That leaves us with, last year we commissioned more projects than the history of BP. We've got a lot more, 6 of them coming on this year. So I think it's all about discipline and care. And we've had our own special circumstances coming out of the Gulf of Mexico accident that we're still working through. But for us inside the company, the mantra is discipline.
Well, given the focus on fiscal discipline, would you potentially consider maybe rethinking your interest, the interest that you've expressed, for instance, in some of the Permian Basin assets that are coming up for bids from BHP?
We'll see. As far as I know, there's 60 companies that are involved in looking at that, and we'll look at it, of course, but there's lots of good opportunities around the world right now for us.
Right. So have higher oil prices, I mean, Brent currently above $75 a barrel, has that made it easier or harder for you when it comes to these sorts of acquisitions? Well,
not really, because we've got a framework. We'll do some acquisitions, but again, it's within the framework we have in capital discipline, cost structure. There are places around the world we will get involved in. We're here in Abu Dhabi, obviously looking at the downstream complex here. We've got a good petrochemicals business as well. But no, it's not. I mean, we're not planning the company on $75 a barrel. I say this 50 to 65 feels like the right fairway for the world. We're certainly off of that fairway now. We'll see what happens. And I think U.S. production we'll see a jump in U.S. production that will offset some of these declines.
There does seem to be some tension between the fiscal discipline maybe that you're talking about and what the market wants to see. Have you considered at all maybe raising the dividend again or raising share buybacks?
Well, I hear the message a lot about, oh, there's not enough investment going into the industry, and I think we're going to stay with our discipline on that. We've always had a strategy of increasing distributions to shareholders over time and at the right point. So as we get our financials, balance sheet in shape and get our debt down, I'm sure we'll consider things like that.
Well, let's move closer to the region now. You have signed an agreement with the Iraqi government to boost capacity at fields in Kirkuk. How is that going, and when might we expect to see the results of your assessment on that front?
So we're a big investor in Iraq. We've been in there in the south in the giant Rumaila oil field near Basra. We've worked on Kirkuk for about 4 or 5 years now. We'll see. There's elections yesterday. I don't know the outcome of those elections, but we know we have a lot to add there. In combination, it'll just be, again, step by step. I know we can add a lot of value and production to those fields just by basic petroleum engineering.
Right. Now, staying with the region again, we are seeing traditional trade routes of commodities being redrawn. I think a BP vessel is scheduled to carry the first shipment of US LNG over to Israel later this month, I believe. How do you see that impacting the traditional Gulf producers and the LNG players in particular?
Well, there's the 2 kinds of LNG trade, those with very long-term contracts and they just commute back and forth, and then there's this new world of spot commodity cargoes or shorter-term contracts, and I think the market will respond. I think we'll see all kinds of changes to trade flows. China is moving to close some of the coal-fired power plants on their coast, which has increased trade of LNG into China. And that's what the market will do. It'll respond fairly quickly.
Right.
Gas is a little slower than oil because oil really is a commodity, but natural gas trade flows will change a little bit slower.
Let's turn to Abu Dhabi then. We are at Adnoc's big Downstream Investment Forum. You have a historic relationship with Adnoc, of course, but were you disappointed not to renew your offshore licenses recently?
So I was, a little bit. We worked here for 75 years, and we're of course in the ADCO concession. For us, there was a moment of uncertainty in some of our corporate dealings, and I was very open with them. Look, just now may not be the right timing, and I think they understand that, and I'm disappointed, but that's okay. So we're looking at the 6 blocks that they put up for bid. So we've got teams working on that, technical teams, and we're looking at the Ruwais expansions and some of the petrochemical work. So Abu Dhabi for us is a strategic partner. We've been here forever. It's a great place to invest, so we'll see.
So you have the Ruwais expansion on the table, the concessions that are coming up. What about a trading partnership? Is that something that you would also consider?
I think so. I think we do trade today with Adnoc, and I think you get into an integrated refining system with petrochemicals and other products. I mean, it's a natural thing for BP. We've got a big trading organization globally, and I would hope that that would expand.
Right. I forgot to ask you on Russia, I'm sorry. The prospect of stronger sanctions when it comes to Russia. Of course, you've been doing business with Rosneft for some time. Is that something that concerns you at all?
Well, I learned last week not to comment at all on sanctions. I made a little comment about it. So I don't have any special insight into it, but I hope that, I think commerce is really important in building bridges between countries, so I hope that doesn't stop, and I'm sure it won't.
Am I allowed to ask you about this report in the Sunday Telegraph about you being poisoned in Russia? Were you poisoned by Russian?
No, it was, as our CFO said, it's one of those urban myths that pops up from time to time, and I'm fine, I'm very healthy.
You're feeling good, all right.
I'm feeling fine,
All right, Mr. Bob Dudley, thank you so much.